This video is brought to you by our new Patreon campaign. Please go support us. It's no secret the Warner Brothers DCEU hasn't had the universal love they were hoping for. Since Batman v Superman and Suicide Squad, they have had several restructurings and mass firings in an attempt to try and get the cinematic universe on track. But it's not on track, and today I'm going to discuss why I think this is, and explain how WB are still making the same mistakes they were making before. If you like the DCEU, that's great, but I hope you will stick around until the end of this video before commenting. Warner Brothers decided to do the opposite of how Marvel built their universe, choosing to start off with a team film being Justice League and spin off into solo films afterwards, in hopes to catch up and differentiate themselves from Marvel. But this is a flawed thought creation process for two reasons. The first being Marvel's build-up allowed them to correct for mistakes while keeping an audience interested. Think about it this way, The Incredible Hulk faded into obscurity to the point where most of the general audience don't realise it's connected to the current MCU. Thor and Captain America were both enjoyable, but failed to capture the larger audience the way Iron Man did. So when we got to the Avengers movie, a large percentage of the audience, whether or not they liked or even saw Hulk, Thor or Captain America, came to see it purely because they loved Iron Man. This is why Robert Downey Jr. was given some creative control and a lot more money than his co-stars. They then used the film to correct some mistakes and change character dynamics to make the lesser characters more interesting and likable, so their future sequel would in theory do better. But DC is starting off a lot of the characters with Justice League. This takes the ability to correct away from them. If Flash and Cyborg aren't amazing in Justice League, the general audience won't want to go see their solo films. Which leads me to the second problem. The Avengers story was built off the story of the solo films, and the DCEU solo films are going to be built off the story of Justice League, and that could be a massive problem. My reasoning is that the movies are being built from decisions being made by a director who won't be in charge of the solo films. And a lot of these decisions will be important to the core of the character's tone, motivation, subtleties, and the world they live in. Now, when the new director/writer comes in to do the solo film, a film that is meant to introduce us to more of the character and their world, they have to work within the framework of what was set up by somebody else, whether that person made mistakes with the character or not. The Flash movie has now had 3 sets of directors. According to Warner Brothers, this is because of creative differences, which is exactly the problem they should have expected. And it goes further than this. Look at Suicide Squad. This film uses 3 iconic Batman characters and a couple of minor ones. At the time this was being made, Warner Brothers would have been under the impression, or at least intention, of Ben Affleck as Batman's director. But Ben had no say in casting or direction of the actors in this film. If he wanted to use the Joker, Harley Quinn, or Killer Croc in his film, he likely would. He is forced to take David Ayer's actors and character tone. Whether or not you like Suicide Squad, surely you can understand the limitation and restriction this puts on him as the writer and director. There is no doubt in my mind that this affected Ben's decision in wanting to leave as the director. What makes it worse is most people don't seem to like David Ayer's interpretation of these iconic characters. So we get to now. Warner Brothers PR team have tried to spread the message that the DCEU is back on track, as they have fixed the issues and now moving forward they will make great movies. But they are still making the same mistakes. Just recently, they announced 2 different movies, Nightwing and Batgirl, 2 quintessentially important Batman characters whose films would likely involve iconic Batman villains. They are being directed and written by 2 different people at the same time that the Batman solo film is being developed, before its director has even established its tone. It's exactly the same problem that Suicide Squad set up the Batman film to have. God forbid the Batman movie is bad. What happens then? Do they scrap the spin-off films? I don't really know. But if you're asking, how does that affect the audience? Well, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't. They would just move on to another project or eventually scrap the entire universe. And that's what worries me. I love these characters. Perhaps outside of Spider-Man, DC have the most iconic superheroes. And in my opinion, most of which are better and more interesting than Marvel's. And the appearance of poor planning and or rushing makes me concerned we aren't going to get great movies from these characters. Anyway guys, what do you think? Should we be concerned? Let me know down below and let's have a conversation.